Hi guys, so today I'm here with George, who is a beautiful double-maned lionhead. He is a resident at the rescue at the moment who is patiently waiting for his forever home with his friend Winnie. I'll put a link in the description for their bio so you can find out more about them. But today's video is about double-maned lionheads and their grooming needs. So there are lots of different opinions about grooming double-maned lionheads. My opinion comes from what's best for the rabbit. So I believe that rabbits should be allowed to behave as close to they were naturally supposed to behave as possible. And I believe that this, well, I think it's quite obvious that this fluff is quite limiting in lots of ways. It can reduce their vision when they've got fur on their face like this. They can get mats, which can really affect their movement, so I can feel there's quite a lot of mats on George here. I don't think that any of them have got to the point of impact to movement, but I've seen a lot that have, and it means that they're not able to fully extend their legs or their back legs. There's also the matting. Sometimes they can get so matted around here that they can't actually reach their bum to eat their cecotropes, which is the poo they do, which they need to eat and then to get all the nutrients the second time round. And often their bum becomes so matted that they can't get to the cecotropes as well. It's a real infection risk, it's a real fly strike risk. I also think that clipping all of their fur off is just the best way of maintaining their fur. I think another option is to groom them every single day and to brush their fur out, and I struggle to see how that's in the rabbit's best interest when that means that they need to be caught every day or every other day, put on a table like this, and have their fur groomed out, which can be more painful because if there's any knots that need to tug on them, and I just think it's much better to have a stressful hour or two perhaps, and then they can get on with their lives for the next 2 months until it comes back around again. And I think it's fairer to do it like that because they forget about it in the time in between and they can just be like normal rabbits. I also think anecdotally with all of the rabbits that I've clipped, either who then stay with myself afterwards or then go home to their guardians, every single one that I've clipped, they just show such an abundance of joy and happiness after they've been clipped. They're often running around and binkying and flopping, and they're just so happy to have that weight and that restriction and limitations taken off them. I think some people think that the fur is beautiful, which is fair enough. We all have opinions of what is and isn't beautiful. I think that it's more important to get the rabbit comfortable. So that's what we're going to do today. So you don't need many things. This is a rounded dog grooming scissors, so it's important that the blade is curved here and that the tip is rounded. So that means that you don't pierce the skin, because remember that rabbit skin is so much more fragile and thin than dog skin or our skin. So what I do is start around the centre of the back and part the fur so you can pretty much see the skin, and then wiggle the scissors right to the base of the fur, and you need to start off really close to the skin because this is your starting point to work out from. So you want to make sure, and it's quite unlikely that they're going to be matted in that centre of their back, so it's a really good place to start. You can start working your way out from this central position. You're wiggling down to the base. Also, the back is the easiest place to do it because there's no folds in the skin, and it's a nice flat surface to start to get used to clipping close to the skin. The reason I use scissors is partly because I'm yet to find electric clippers that I feel do a good enough job. I've tried quite a few and I found that they've all overheated when they come up against mats, and then get really quite hot, which is obviously dangerous for the rabbit. I find that the noise of them is more stressful for the rabbit. I think it's more dangerous and more likely to cause injuries. I've had quite a few rabbits that have been have mats clipped off at the vets, and they've come back and have been cut by them, and that's when the rabbit's sedated. So I know accidents happen, but it just seems like this is the less stressful and easier option to use the scissors. You have much more control over it. Before you decide to cut each time, you can be certain you're not at any skin, which I think is a lot harder to do with clippers. So I'm going to continue to do the back and then catch up with you later. So we've done the back. We now have a choice we can either go this way, we can go around the side into the stomach, or we can go around the front and into the front of the chest. I think this depends on the rabbits and how happy they are. I think with George, I can feel that there's some mats all the way around here, so I want to go around here and just make sure that before, because sometimes you may have to stop, obviously, if the rabbit is getting too distressed. In George's case, he's doing really well, so whilst he's doing so well, I want to get the worst of these mats out from around here. So you want to pull the skin taut so you flatten out any wrinkles around here, but what you never want to do is pull the fur away from you and then cut, because what you're doing is pulling the skin up with the hair, and it's so easy then to clip the skin whilst by accident, because you pulled the skin closer to it. I've done around this area mostly, but I just wanted to show when you're doing the face. So you want to leave the whiskers, of course. You don't need to be really upset if you take one by accident, because it doesn't cause them pain, but they do need them to sense things. So they have the whiskers that you'd expect here, but they also have whiskers above their eyes. So there's whiskers here, so you want to move the whiskers away with the this back edge of the scissors, like so, and then cut. And if you go really carefully, really slowly around this area, you will feel that the whiskers have a different texture than the fur. They are a bit like thicker and wirier. So if you go really slowly, you can often you can feel the texture of the whisker before you actually cut them. So that's a good way of doing it as well. So then with the under the chin, I've done most of it, but if you pull back the fur here and then just gently lift it up and just cut like so. Again, you're being careful of whiskers. And then hopefully if they're okay in this position, you want to keep going as much as you can in between their legs, because that's a really difficult place to reach. Good boy, George, you're so good. So if the rabbit is more difficult to handle, or you struggle with handling rabbits, the main thing is confidence. But if you're already quite confident, then the second thing is to not be too confident. If you have overconfidence, that can lead to accidents and injuries. So it's a good idea to go very slow, calmly, carefully. If you're in any doubt that you have skin or that you're too close to the skin, do not clip. You can try again. Like then, I wasn't 100% sure. I went to clip and I thought, no, I'm gonna back off and only snip when you're 100% certain that you are clear of skin. So remember that rabbits often calm down when you cover their face. So sometimes if you cover their face like this, when you clip in here, that can really calm them down, get them in the crook of your elbow whilst you're doing their back so that their face is covered, and just generally being quite confident and firm in your movements. It helps them feel more safe. As soon as you're like scared and cautious, they definitely know and they pick up on that and they take advantage of it. So we are now needing to do the belly, which will then join up to what we just did under the chest. So lifting the rabbit up and then come from the side. So with the belly, we need to remember that girl rabbits and boy rabbits have nipples, and we do not want to snip any nipples. So I always take the belly a little bit longer than the rest, or you can go like this and find the nipples amongst the fur. But generally speaking, if you just keep the fur a little longer under the belly, it's not a bad idea. And you want to go shorter around the armpits, but the armpits are a high risk area, so you really want to stretch out the skin under the armpits and actually, so just take off the top bit. Don't go short at the beginning, so then you can see better. So with George, there's all this fur and skin under his armpit that we want to stretch out to make sure that we don't have any folds, and it's the folds that can be dangerous to snip if you don't realise that they're in the fur. So I'm going to get on with that. So when you need to get inside the inner armpit and inside that leg, get your finger behind this elbow joint and gently push forward, and the rabbit will extend their leg, and then you can get the whole inside. Let's try again, there we go, the whole inside here without having to tug them. It just kind of works with how they would naturally extend their leg, and then you've got a really nice long leg that you can cut in between. So with my thumb, I'm just pulling the head back slightly. George is not too stressed at all right now. His breathing is very normal, and we're getting this done. One advantage of doing this, we can really give a thorough health check. We can see if there's any fleas or mites. We can feel for any lumps and bumps, any injuries, things like that, and just get a really good overview of the visual health of the rabbit from what we can see. Obviously that's no replacement for a health check with a vet, but it's good to be able to pick up on things early. When I do videos and posts about clipping double mane lion heads, I always get a lot of negative comments, which I expect and welcome, because most of the time it's out of care for the rabbit, which I think is just fantastic for people to care. And I think if you've not seen someone do this before, it could maybe be a bit shocking. I wish I didn't have to do this. I do not think this is I don't think George is enjoying this. I don't think this is a fantastic thing to do. It is unfortunately just a necessary thing to do for rabbits who should never have been bred like this. So yeah, we're very grateful that George exists because he's a wonderful individual, but the breed itself is definitely creates a lot more suffering. But of course, for rabbits like George who have been bred and they do exist, then we have a duty of care to them to get them as comfortable as possible and to provide them with love, safety, comfort, all of those things. So let's get back to it. So we're pretty much done at the front. So a good idea is to get to good enough for each part. So there are a couple bits I could get here, but at the moment we're at good enough. And if George is still doing well at the end, then we can come back and we can neaten those bits up. But remember, we are not doing this for aesthetic reasons. It's nice to get neater as you go, just with practice, I mean, but the goal is not to make the rabbits look good, it's to make them feel good and to be able to live normal lives. Remember, they don't care what they look like, they just want the job done well, quickly, safely, to get it over and done with. Okay, so we're on to the bum. For this, we do need to tip the rabbit very slightly onto the base of their spine. So they are, before when we did the stomach, the feet were flat on the floor, now they are sat at the base of their spine. So I always think on camera this looks like the rabbit's more lying back than they are. So keeping them as upright as possible, but realising there is going to have to be a slight tilt. There's a couple of things we need to be careful about here. So the first one is genitals. Especially you want to make sure first, have a good root around. When I'm doing grooming clients, I always want to make sure that if you've got a male, I want to see if they're neutered or not, because obviously if there's testicles there, that's an extra thing or an extra two things to work around. With both boys and girls, you obviously want to be really careful around the genitals, more so boys, but some girl rabbits do have just larger genitals. Everyone's different, so you want to be really careful. So a lot of the time you kind of move the sensitive area out of the way and go either side, and just have the utmost care. The other thing we've got to be really careful of is the tail. We find the tail in one hand and then tuck it away when we're cutting, so we know it's tucked away. Then when we turn the rabbit back over, I'm doing this area, get this finger under the rabbit, find the tail and tuck away, so you know this area is not tail. And then when you come to cutting the tail, you find exactly where the tailbone is, put your thumb over the tailbone and clip either side of it. So always protecting that. So again, with this area, you want to stretch the stomach up here so you can bring the fur closer to you really to get it away from that more difficult place in between the legs. So it's a stretching motion to really pull the skin taut so you can be getting closer to the skin in a safe way. So again, with this part, remember that little technique I said? Push into this hip crease and it extends the leg, and then you can keep the pressure there, and then you keep the nice long leg. You're straightening out any creases, making it a safer, smoother surface to clip along. You want to be careful and feel around the foot area for mats, because there's often some mats along the side, and sometimes with these rabbits they can get mats on one side of the foot or the other, which causes them to walk with their foot turned in or out, which can then cause problems with their hips and things like that. So we really want to do like cut out those mats, but we want padding on the foot, so you're not cutting underneath the foot like you would the rest of the body. You're leaving some cushion, taking out the mats, but leaving that cushioning, because it's really important to cover their hocks. Sometimes you have mats that are felted to the skin, and in that case, sometimes it's a furminator like this, which you have to be very careful with because these are really quite harsh. Pull the fur away, and you can see the gap, and you're not pulling anymore, you're clipping, and then you pull the fur away for the next bit, pulling the skin taut and then clipping, and it can take a really long time. And in those cases when the matting is really bad, then it should be done over several sessions. So we are all done and George is back to being a normal rabbit. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Let me know what other videos you'd like to see. I'm going to let George go run around with Winnie now and get all of his energy out. Please subscribe, it would be lovely, and thank you so much. Bye.